Hi, everyone. Welcome to Give's April learning session. Inside the system, the fight for mental health and rehabilitation behind bars. If you've joined us before, welcome back. And if this is your first time, we're so glad you're here. I'm Sophia, the events manager for Give to Give, and today I'm joined by two incredible guests. First up, we have Rose Caiola. Rose is a philanthropist and activist deeply committed to fostering hope and transformation within communities. As chairwoman of the Give to Give Foundation, she has been instrumental in expanding our programs and deepening their impact, bringing life-changing resources to the people and places that need them the most. Her work is grounded in the belief that the meaningful, lasting change happens one life and one community at a time. Joining Rose is Jesse Vasquez. Jesse is the executive director of the Pollen Initiative. He served as editor-in-chief of San Quentin News from 2017 until his release in 2019, and has continued his leadership as a strategic advisor to San Quentin News, Forward This Productions, and the Change Talk podcast. Jesse also serves on the Governor's Advisory Council, helping reimagine San Quentin as a model for innovative rehabilitation. We're so excited to dive into this important conversation about mental health and the prison system. And before we get started, I just wanted to go over a quick bit of Zoom housekeeping. If you have any questions during the conversation, feel free to drop them into the Q&A box below. We'll be keeping an eye on it throughout the conversation. After Rose and Jesse wrap up, we'll close the session with Dr. Joe's Generating Change meditation. If you have headphones, eye shades, or anything else that helps you settle in, now is a great time to have those nearby. Before we pass things over, we wanted to share a quick update from our Prisons to Monasteries program. In 2025, we have already had 44 Change Your Mind, Create New Results trainings scheduled, reaching more than 2,000 incarcerated men and women across prisons in the US, Mexico, and Costa Rica. By the end of 2025, this will bring our total number of lives impacted through the program to over 4,800. So to our donors that are joining us today, a heartfelt thank you from us. Your support is what makes this work possible, and you've helped bring the tools of transformation and empowerment directly into the hands of the people that need them the most. So, without further ado, I would love to hand things over to Rose to get us started.
Thank you, Sophia. That was wonderful. And hi, everyone. Jesse, some of what Sophia was saying was really, it's instrumental to you because, you were actually the first advocate for us to get us into San Quentin and into the first U.S. prison. So thank you and welcome to our little podcast here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's my pleasure to help.
So tell us a little bit about your experience while you were in prison and what your thoughts were on mental health and well-being of the incarcerated during your time there, and maybe also go into like how the system met or failed your needs.
For sure. Yeah, so I think it's helpful to give some context on, my background in the whole prison system as a whole. So individually, being raised as a Mexican American, second generation, we weren't allowed to cry. There was no such thing as depression or anxiety in my household. Even though they existed, we weren't allowed to talk about it. So processing emotions wasn't a thing that we did either at my home or on the streets. So when I went into the prison system, I wasn't surprised to realize that there was a lot of individuals who were not allowed to process or cope. So even though there were some mental health services, it was only by request. And unfortunately, because of our background and our gang involvement inside of the prison system, we had our own internal rules where you couldn't seek help even if you wanted it. So you had to literally cope with your own reality and try and figure out how to navigate the prison system without seeming weak, without seeming like a liability, and without becoming a victim. So there was a cultural aspect that was against us, that didn't let us seek the help that we needed. And then there was also the element of like the institutions weren't equipped with the actual resources that we needed to actually, like either cope with our reality, live with, a life sentence, or also process the grief and loss and trauma of our childhoods, our families, our separation, our anxieties, and our daily fears. So that was the context in which, I grew up in the California prison system. So the first 15 to 16 years, it was just, just finding ways for me to cope. For me, it was literature and writing. But for other people, it was self-medicating through either heroin, crystal meth, or just figuring out how to make things work. It's hard to find a sense of peace and tranquility in a place that's very arbitrary, very lacking in trauma-informed resources, and also very violent. So up until 2015, we didn't have a lot of resources inside of the system that actually provided outlets for rehabilitation or mental wellness. You know, there was a stigma about mental health. So in 2015, there was more resources allocated to the prison system, more programs came in, and then the lower levels I came to, I received more opportunities for programs that provided, like gap fillers, to help me process and figure out coping mechanisms that were a lot healthier. But it wasn't until I would say 2024, about a year ago in January, when the penal code in California changed, where prisons became, their mission shifted from punishment. Because up until 2024, the purpose of prisons in California was punishment. There was no incentive for rehabilitation. So the governor and the legislature decided they were going to change the penal code. Gavin Newsom signed into law new changes, and all of a sudden, the California prison system shifted its mission from just punishment to rehabilitation, reentry, and family reunification. So now we have a lot more resources and accessibility to the services that bring about that.
But before all that happened, books played an integral role for you throughout your time in that prison system. Tell us how did that become an outlet for you?
I think literature for me was the main outlet because, the written word is not judgmental. It's just there, it's like a mirror that you get to see yourself in, but it doesn't judge you. It just like brings things out of you. And then also having multiple life sentences, was like a bit hard. I didn't have a concept of time when I went in. I went in at 16, almost 17 years old, paroled when I was 36. So for me, I didn't have an idea of what 20 years felt like, 30 years. So when I got sentenced to multiple life terms, I didn't understand that a life term was literally I would die in prison. But 10 years into the system, I started feeling a sense of depression and desperation, knowing that I wouldn't be home again, knowing that I wouldn't be able to be on the streets. And literature became that outlet. Like through books, I was able to live lives that I would never live and experience things that I would never, be able to embrace again, on this, in this life. At least that's what I thought until, Governor Jerry Brown gave me a pardon. But literature became that outlet for me, and writing became kind of my way of self-expressing. So the books were basically the way that I would internalize, new worldviews, new values, and new experiences. And then writing became my way of trying to live that out, in my own little way.
Is that how you were able to maintain your mental health wellness throughout your, because you've been in several prisons, right? And I remember we talked about this before, and you had mentioned that most prisons don't offer a lot of mental health and wellness programs, unlike San Quentin. And San Quentin was kind of like your last stop, right before you were able to step out.
Yeah, so most of the prisons that I went to, they were either maximum security. I got transferred a lot for, like misbehavior, mission changes, and things like that. So I went to 13 of the 34 institutions that they have in California and about 19 prison yards. So I made a lot of transfers and changes. And the thing that kept me consistent were my books. Literature was the main thing that I carried with me. And sometimes they did have resources, but again, because of the culture inside of the prisons, like you're not allowed to show weakness, you're not allowed to cry, you're not allowed to seek help. There's a lot of stigmatizing around seeking assistance. So there was like either lack on the administrative side where they didn't provide it because there was no funding or lack of funding, and they would rather give you like chemical intervention rather than give you counseling and therapy. And then there was the other element where, it was the homies and the crowd that you hung around with that would keep you out of it. So my comfortable balance and compromise was, coping through literature and writing.
Wow. So that brought you to one of your amazing initiatives now, right? It's called the Pollen Initiative. That led you, right, to this path that you're on now.
Yeah.
I'd love our audience to hear a little bit about what you're doing now and how that came to be from your work at San Quentin.
Yeah, so the Pollen Initiative is an outgrowth of, the vision and mission that we had at the San Quentin News to provide information and resources to incarcerated individuals so that they can make better choices with their lives. We're not in the business of telling people how to live their lives. We're just, trying to provide resources so that people can understand. So I managed the newspaper at San Quentin, and I noticed that the more people had like information that was relevant to them, the better decisions they would make and the better our culture would become inside of the institution. And that wasn't just necessarily true for San Quentin. That was the only place that I could see at the moment when I was editor in chief. And I realized that if you take ownership of a community or you let them be a part of that civic engagement, then all of a sudden they have some buy-in and they have some autonomy in how they exercise their decision-making powers. So San Quentin News became sort of our mechanism by which we share, information that's vital to them to make better decisions. Pollen Initiative is a rebranding of an organization that we had before called Friends of San Quentin News, dedicated to providing support for the media programs at San Quentin. We wanted to broaden that opportunity and incorporate the women's voices from the Central California Women's Facility. We wanted to add a couple maximum security prisons. We wanted to broaden the scope of the work that we did, not only to provide multimedia training, but also broaden the space of the voices that are incorporated into the space. For instance, San Quentin has 3% of the prison population, but gets 70 to 80% of the media coverage in the state of California. That's an unfair assessment because 90% of the prisons are not like San Quentin. San Quentin is a newly designed media center or rehabilitation center that used to be a maximum security prison back in the 80s. It hasn't been a maximum security prison since the 80s. So to measure the other 32 facilities by the standard of San Quentin is kind of wrong. It should be the other way around. Like San Quentin has a lot more resources, and therefore, it's going to be a great place for people to transition through and from out into the real world. But the other facilities need to be able to tell their own stories, and those stories are the fact that we still lack a lot of resources, we still need a lot of help, and we still have a lot of people that are trying to find those resources. So we wanted to broaden that opportunity to individuals to be a part of that conversation. And that's what the Pollen Initiative does. We incubate media centers inside of institutions that otherwise are neglected.
No, it's great. And we're again so grateful for you're always bringing us into, prisons that you are starting these programs in. We've noticed that as well. Having, been in several prisons now, delivering this Change Your Mind, Create New Results program, that they don't really, a lot of prisons don't offer any programs on mental health and wellness. And I feel like sometimes is it just a lack, is it an ignorance or is it a lack of caring or not understanding how important it is? Or is it just that they don't, some just don't want to bother?
No, I think there's a couple of things. Like I said, the penal code in California changed, last year in January, so that prisons are now moving more towards a mission of rehabilitation. Not that before they didn't really care. As individuals, I believe the officers, the administration, and everybody else wants to provide as much resource, hope, and purpose to the incarcerated as they can. Unfortunately, the policies were not supportive of that. Not until January of 2024 can we say that the mission of the Department of Corrections, is different. Today it's about rehabilitation and providing those opportunities. I think the one thing to keep in mind, though, is that the standard of release for somebody serving a life sentence in prison, it's not whether they're mentally healthy. It's whether they are a public safety concern. And what that looks like for the most part for the state is can they manage their drug addiction? Now, we understand that to be a component of mental health and mental wellness. However, if they can regurgitate the 12 steps, if they can take violence prevention programming, if they can take anger management, we understand those things as an outgrowth of having a sound mental mind. Well, the Department of Corrections is not concerned so much with that because that's just one element of it. They want to understand if you know how to count to 10 before you react in violence. They want to make sure that you know not to take a drink because that's what leads you to your crime. So most of the programming is designed to address what they call like your criminogenic needs. What are the things that have led you to your crimes before? Was it greed? Was it pride? Was it anger? Was it frustration? Was it domestic violence? Things like that. Now we know that the root cause of it is, not having, consistent, wellness, mental health practices. But for the Department of Corrections, they're in the business of like making sure that they have on document, on record that we put you through the programs that were necessary to address your criminogenic needs. Not necessarily we put you in mental health programming and made it accessible to you so that you can be mentally sound. So I think that's where the disconnect is at. Like our standard is we want to create sound human beings that, have the fullness of life, and they can think with a clear mind. For the department, it's we've created citizens that understand the laws, policies, and their precursors to crime. So we have two separate standards, right? And then how do we find that middle ground? And I think we're speaking about the same thing, but from two different perspectives. We have different responsibilities. Our responsibility is to heal the whole person. Their responsibility is to make sure that they hold people accountable and that they don't come back to prison.
Right, and they're kind of processing paperwork. Sounds like we need to focus on, well, Give to Give needs to focus on the Department of Corrections and bring them through the program.
Yeah, I mean that's a great idea. I mean there is a lot of so with the Department of Corrections, they have new training models, they have the pillars of the California model, normalization, trauma-informed training and things like that. And the one element that I think the majority of us, always neglect when we talk about the department is, the mental health of staff. The mental health of staff is the other component and element in our rehabilitation. Like we can't be fully rehabilitated and transformed unless we bring the officers, the admin, and everybody else involved in the process with us. Because we're all suffering the same kind of trauma. We all see the same violence. We all experience the same thing. I don't think any of us thinks that it's humane to cage a human being up at night. That it's okay to, control people as if they were cattle, led to the slaughter when we're letting them out to go to the chow hall to go eat food. I don't think that's normal for anybody's brain. And at the end of the day, the officers have to go home with that on their conscience. So I think it'd be a great idea, to also incorporate them as part of like a holistic approach to the mental health awareness inside of the prison systems.
Well, we are trying to do that, and there are a few prisons that are open to it and have let us deliver the program, because what we do best is, having teaching about the brain, the science of the brain, and how it relates to our behavior. And
Mhm.
so, I mean, everyone that we've brought through the program is so appreciative because they understand, mental health differently than they ever have before. They're learning about their behavior. They're learning how automatic programs get set up by experiences that happened in their life in the past, and how we're living in the past, constantly thinking that, we want our lives to change, we want our future to change, but if we don't take the necessary steps to actually change it, it's never going to happen. So when they understand that information and it's such a simplistic form, as you've been there with us delivering the program, it changes their perspective, and they get something clicks that didn't click before.
Mhm.
So we're going to keep going with this program. And what did you experience when you were with us several times? What was the community telling you?
Yeah, well, they were grateful for the fact that this was different than what they had anticipated a mental health program to be like. Even though they understood, like, hey, we're dealing with the root cause of our behavior and trying to tap into how to change these, neural patterns and stuff like that, they felt more that it was like a community building exercise. And instead of just being a restorative justice practice, it was more a restorative or restoring the human being thing. And for a lot of them, especially all of the gang members that I know in the system that were a part of the program, they were grateful to the fact that there was no stigma behind it because when they announced it in the buildings, it wasn't like, hey, report to your mental health ducket. It was more like, no, report to your workshop, that they're doing, in the chapel. So there was that element where they were able to say, like, hey, we weren't stigmatized, we weren't laughed at, and we got a whole lot out of this. And for the most part, some of the guys that I know that were like struggling with their addiction with heroin and fentanyl and crystal meth and stuff, they've since actually like stepped away from that and were able to find the root cause and what was actually triggering either their insecurities or their addiction. And it was all through the program that they were experiencing that. And the moments that I was there, I realized that a lot of the guys that started the program one way, they ended up leaving totally different men, just because of the values that they were able to learn and the understanding that they got out of the program.
Great to hear. I mean, we hear some of it, but we don't hear all of it. And sharing that is really special. Thank you. That's what we're hoping to do. And, our work is going to continue. And Jesse, in your view, how could Give to Give Foundation's prison program support the mental health and well-being of incarcerated men and women going forward?
So I think there's a couple things. I mean, the workshops are great, but as you know, it's a small staff, and it's like varying groups and stuff, so it's like every other month or every 3 months, and there has to be a little bit more consistency, even if it's just like touch points in between, because I know you do the follow-ups, when you do the next session and stuff. But I would imagine that if there was a digital component that was on the tablets, or there was a correspondence, like a mentorship component, where individuals were able to engage with individuals that had gone through the program on the outside to stay in community with these individuals on the inside and just help them through the process, even if it was just not some kind of pen pal thing, but more like a mentorship thing where the folks inside can actually ask somebody on the outside, like, hey, I'm going through this, here's what's going on. Here's what the program taught me, but I'm running into some gaps here, or I'm hitting a wall and stuff. Because in between, we have this thing like progressive care, where, it's not just like touch points where I'm getting a checkup once a year or every 6 months. It's more like just staying in community with individuals because you're trying to create that web of a community.
Okay. We actually are trying to get onto the tablets now. We've been working with that software program. So that's great. But I think sometimes for us, the struggle is with the administration. And, we've offered to deliver the program to them. Sometimes they feel resisted. They resist it. So any tips you can give me with that one?
No, so I think one of the things with, like, I think it's any state entity, right? There's issue of liability, cost, and who's responsible. So I think just finding a way to like package it where the value proposition is like we're owners of this, we're taking ownership of it, and the state doesn't have any liability, for on our part, and we take responsibility for making sure that we're able to do everything according to the rules, figure out the costs, and then try and get this accessible to everybody involved, and then the other thing I think that would make it better
It's
selling point is
cost
the
to
fact,
them.
huh?
It's no cost to them.
Yeah, no, but that's the thing. Like they need to know that at the top level, right? So the local administrations can want to endorse the program, but they're like the one hurdle to pass is like, okay, well, there's no cost to you. And then they're like, okay, cool. But then if you want to expand it to other prisons or put it on the tablets, then it's a matter of like, well, what does that mean for us? Do we have to like add added security? Do we have to have added supervision? Like anytime they think about adding a new program, they think about what cost is it going to add to us, even if it's not, a cost for the program. Just having somebody else having to be there supervising might add a cost unless you have your volunteers, who have a brown card and are able to be in the room. So, like, make the responsibility on the state side as minimal as possible, and then you have a better selling point, for them to actually say yes.
Great, great. Thank you. And so what are your plans for the future now with the Pollen Initiative? Are you going to continue traveling from prison to prison and empowering the whole media community?
So we have, I mean, our main goal, right, is always like to be a community-based organization. We go into the communities, we see what they need, we provide them either with, the wherewithal to start a newsletter, a newspaper, a video production program, or a podcast, and then we just bring them into the community and try and support them. Right now, we have on our horizon in September, we're going to be hosting what we call the American Penal Press Contest. It used to be what they consider the Pulitzer Prizes behind bars. And it's like an award ceremony for all of the prison newspapers nationwide. Like, we don't have enough prison newspapers in this country. We have a lot of prison journalists who write about prison life and publish somewhere else, but we don't have like embedded reporters inside producing their own newspapers about their own community, chronicling the history of what's taking place there. and we want to elevate the ones that do exist. There's currently about 41 across the country. So we want to host this ceremony to number one, build community, and number two, start creating an archive of all of these prison newspapers so that family members on the outside can see what their loved ones are doing on the inside, and also so that the inside community starts taking ownership, for what happens in their space. Sometimes you just have to like want better for your community to do better for your community, and you have to know how to do that and how to go about it and know that people are watching. There's an element of accountability with having a prison publication or a video production program inside of an institution. It empowers the incarcerated to take ownership of their lives and their stories, and also it holds them accountable because now you have somebody chronicling what's actually taking place. So those are some of the things that we have going on this year.
I mean, I love it. Whenever I'm there, I'm always picking up a paper and I love, reading the stories and all of the work that's going on and the programs and how everybody's participating. Can we get copies of those newspapers? I've always tried, I've tried, but I, I don't know how to get a copy.
So there's a couple of things you can do. So all of our newspapers, the Mule Creek Post has its own website, San Quentin News has its own website, ccwfpapertrail.org is the website for the first women's media center in the country. They have their own newspaper as well out of Central California Women's Facility. So, and then we also have the pollenpress.org. That's a website that has all of our publications. So we have publications in Oregon, Washington, and California right now.
All right, that's great. I'll be sure to tap into that and we will make sure that, the audience here tonight has those links as well as to the Pollen Initiative website. I don't have any other questions for you, but I could talk to you for hours and hours. You're always, great to talk to and a wealth of information. We're so grateful that you took the time to spend with us tonight for this podcast. And anything else you want to add before we open it up for Q&A?
No, thank you, Rose. It's been great. It's been an honor. I love your program. I love the Give to Give Foundation. You guys do a lot of awesome work, so I'm happy to support any way I can.
Thank you. And same, we were here to support you as well. Sophia, do you want to open it up for Q&A?
Yeah, absolutely. And Jesse, thank you both. First off, this has been amazing and it's so insightful to get to hear firsthand your experience, Jesse. We have so many people that are passionate about this work and interested in the work that Give to Give is doing in prisons within our community. But it takes things to a whole nother level to get to hear firsthand the experiences that you've had and that it's really like for people that are inside the prison system. So for the first question that we have, it is that you've been both inside the system and are now helping to transform it. What was a turning point for you in your own journey towards change?
For me, I remember the exact moment. I was high on my dopamine run. I was running at Old Folsom. I had ran about 107 laps, just trying to relieve some stress, trying to find some semblance of peace. And I remember just feeling very free, even though I was confined. And I had made a conscious decision to just step away from a lot of the prison nonsense that was just, a lot of noise in my life. And it was more out of a sense of wanting better for myself than being tired of the system. I think I realized that I could do a whole lot more in the world with, clarity of mind and clarity of thought instead of worrying about everybody else's business inside of the system, and that was what led to just me wanting something better. I was always a bit smart, but I don't think I was intelligent until I realized that I needed to let go of everybody else's business and start minding my own.
Thank you. That's very powerful. For the next question we have, how do you believe that we move from punishment to possibility when it comes to how we treat people that are inside the system? And this one can be for both Rose and Jesse if you both want to answer.
Go ahead, Jesse.
Well, I think the main thing is empathy. When we talk about, the possibility of human beings, I don't think any of us would say that there is no human being without possibility. I think the problem with offering that as just a value proposition is we have to also create a fertile ground to exercise empathy. And we as a society and as individuals, sometimes we have our own biases that hinder us from actually having empathy for individuals. and I'm not talking about having pity, which is a little bit different, right? Like we can feel bad for somebody being in jail or prison, but having empathy, understanding that if it weren't for grace or opportunity or environment or economics, you could find yourself in the same place, and understanding that, hey, maybe I was able to say no, but they weren't. And then realizing that, what, the same potential that I have, they harness as well. And how can I pave the way for them? It's one thing to have goodwill towards somebody. It's another thing to actually step down and bring them up with you. And I think that's what empathy does. I can feel bad for somebody and not do nothing for them, or I can have empathy for them and step into their shoes and try and bring them out of where they are.
And to add to that, I think it also has to do with lack of information, just not knowing, not having the information to understand, how human behavior really works. So I know that when we go in and we talk about that, there's always an awareness of like, and an aha moment, like, wow, I didn't know that. Like I never learned that in school and no one ever told me. So it's not taught. So if you're taught empathy, you're going to learn it. And so it's just, just a lack of having that information.
Thank you both for those answers. That is so insightful, and it really helps kind of provide a deeper understanding around the context of really why this is important, because it truly is to get access to mental health resources and everybody to people that are incarcerated. For the last question that we have, Jesse, what would you say to someone who is currently incarcerated who feels like change or transformation isn't possible for them?
I think the main thing I mean, I have this conversation on a daily basis because I go into the prisons a lot, and it's more about, the question is never about whether change is possible. The question is like, why change? If I have a life sentence, or a death sentence, for the people that came off of death row that are walking the main line, I think wanting change doesn't necessarily matter whether you're going home or not. It matters whether you want to be a better person and be able to live with yourself, knowing that you at least tried. And I think that's the one thing that as human beings, being resilient is one thing, being able to harness your potential and tap into, your own personal growth and take accountability. Like that's where actually true change comes. I think most people in prison don't ever ask, is change possible? They always ask, is it worth it? Because you have to give up a lot.
Before we wrap things up, Jesse or Rose, do you guys have anything else you would like to share with our audience? Any closing words?
I mean, I'm just so grateful. Again, from the first day I met you, I was very impressed. And I was telling everyone, what an example you are. And just grateful that you brought us in and you've supported us and you're taking the time now to let us know, because you know what, it's a matter of getting the word out and having, communities understand really what's going on and the lack of support that prisons have in the mental health and wellness field. So thank you. Big time.
Yeah, no, thank you, Rose. Thank you. I will just say my last thing, right? If you invest in the stock market, there's no guarantee on what you get. But when you invest in community, you're paving the way for a better future for everybody. So I think that's my motto.
It's a good one.
Love that. Our prisons work, the Prisons to Monasteries program is something that we're so passionate about. It was the first program of Give to Give of actually going out into communities and bringing this work to the people that truly need it. I think you've heard from this conversation both the impact that we can have when we come together and we provide resources to people that don't have access to them currently, and also the hurdles that we face every day to bring this work to the people that really need it. There's many things in place, both on personal and collective and institutional levels. And we keep bringing it, we keep doing the work, and we keep having our amazing team that is so passionate about bringing this in, because they witness firsthand and with every single training the impact that we're able to create together. So thank you guys so much for joining us for this conversation. Thank you, Rose and Jesse, for being our guests this evening. I've truly enjoyed having you here. After this, we're going to transfer into the meditation portion of tonight's session. So if you want to grab your headphones, your eye masks, please make yourself comfortable. We will give you guys a few seconds to get situated, and then we will get into the meditation, and I will see you guys after. Thank you.
Thank you so
Eyes closed. Take a breath. For love into your heart. And exhale. And relax. Into your heart. Feel it. Notice it. Your heart. And breathe a little love into your heart. And exhale. And relax. Into your heart. And breathe in for love. To your heart. And exhale. And relax. And let a little more love into your heart. Breathe for love into your heart. And exhale. And relax. And let love into your heart. And let the thought of someone you love bring up the feeling of love. In your heart. Feel it. Hold them in that feeling. In your heart. Hold them in your heart. Feel it. Now put their heart in your heart. And Feel your love for them. In your heart. That's your love. You're giving them. In their heart. Feel it. That's energy. In your heart. That's energy. In their heart. That's your energy. In their heart. That's love. Your love. In their heart. That's love. In your heart. Feel it. Experience it. Enjoy it. That's the love you want them to feel. In their heart. Feel it. In your heart. Feel your connection to them. In your heart. One heart. That's love. In one heart. Feel it. And become one. In your heart. That's love. Your love. For their heart. That's your love. In your heart. Feel it. In your heart. That's energy. In your heart. That's a little more oneness. In your heart. That's your connection. To love. In your heart. That's the feeling. You want people you love to feel in their heart. And remember, this feeling know it by heart. That's life. In your heart. Who do you want to be? When you open your eyes. In your heart. Feel it. Your heart. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. And come back to the realm of space and time. Remember, There's love in your heart.
Welcome back, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the meditation. Thank you for joining us today for our April learning session. This was a insightful and very powerful conversation. I'll say that firsthand, I got so much out of the experience, and it's really special to be able to connect our community more closely with the work that we're doing, because we're so passionate about bringing it into communities like the prison system, because there's a real tangible need. And we know that this work can be powerful and transformative for anybody that's engaged with it. So we really just want to expand access. So Give to Give is a community-powered nonprofit, which means that we're able to expand access to this work thanks to the people that are donors in our community, thanks to many of the people on this call. So before we close, I wanted to invite you to join our mission. And if you feel moved by what you heard and you believe in bringing the tools of change to people inside the system, we would love your support. You will see a link in the chat. Just click it to make a donation. Every contribution helps us to reach more people through the program and expand access to life-changing resources. And we'll also be sharing a QR code on the screen. Together, we're proving that empowerment and transformation is possible for everyone. Thank you again for spending this time with us, and we will see you next time.